Africa's cashew industry is exploding. New processing factories from Nigeria to Côte d'Ivoire are rising. Farmers are earning more than ever. Global demand is skyrocketing. And yet, something unexpected has just happened. India has quietly taken over Africa's cashew market, and the United States never saw it coming. While Washington was busy focusing on oil politics, military bases, and trade sanctions, India was busy building factories, signing long-term agro-processing deals, training African farmers, and creating a supply chain that now stretches from West Africa deep into Indian industrial hubs. And today, India controls the heart of Africa's cashew export pipeline. This move has shocked U.S. traders, disrupted global food markets, and signaled a major geopolitical shift in Africa's agricultural economy. This is the full story. Welcome to Iazicho Africa. Cashews don't often make global headlines. They're small, crunchy, and usually seen as snacks on supermarket shelves. But in reality, cashews are one of the most valuable agricultural exports in the world, especially for West African countries like Côte d'Ivoire, Benin, Burkina Faso, Ghana, Nigeria, and Guinea-Bissau. For decades, the United States held significant influence over Africa's cashew trade because American food companies dominated global processing, branding, and distribution. But the U.S. made one huge mistake. They underestimated India's strategic vision. India is the largest cashew processor in the world. Over 60% of all global cashew kernels pass through Indian factories. And unlike the U.S., India built its processing power by partnering directly with African nations, instead of trying to control them. While U.S. companies demanded raw cashew nuts at low prices, India offered something entirely different: processing factories, training programs, farmers' cooperative support, low-interest credit, technology for shelling and roasting, long-term supply agreements, better farm gate prices. This Indian model wasn't charity. It was strategy. A strategy that worked. By 2024 to 2025, India had already surpassed the U.S. in Africa's cashew import and processing ecosystem. And now, in 2025, India is officially the dominant force in Africa's cashew export economy. Washington is shocked, but Africa isn't. Africa has been watching the rise of India for years, and many see it as a true partnership, not exploitation. To understand the shock in the U.S., you must understand the power behind cashews. Cashews are not just snacks. They are a top agricultural export for several African countries, worth billions of dollars. High-value cash crops for millions of small farmers. A gateway to agro-processing industrialization. In high demand globally in India, China, Europe, and the Middle East. Côte d'Ivoire, for example, is the world's largest cashew producer. Nigeria is rapidly increasing production. Benin and Guinea-Bissau rely heavily on cashew for rural livelihoods. Cashew is also a politically neutral commodity. You don't need oil pipelines, military bases, or heavy engineering. Just good farm management and a buyer who respects the farmers. For years, African farmers complained about low prices, exploitation by Western buyers, unfair trade terms, no investment in local processing, no value added locally. Then India came in and changed everything. India doesn't just buy. India builds factories, warehouses, roasting plants, training programs, packaging centers, export routes. Suddenly, African cashew farmers began earning more than ever before. And the U.S. is asking, what just happened? India's approach to African agriculture is fundamentally different from Western economic models. Here's how India took over the market, step by step. While the U.S. mostly wanted raw nuts, India wanted processed kernels, which are much more valuable. So India started planting processing facilities inside Africa. This keeps jobs in Africa, revenue in Africa, technology in Africa, skills in Africa. U.S. companies? They kept everything offshore. Indian buyers offered higher farm gate prices, transparent weighing, no middleman exploitation, long-term price stability. Farmers quickly understood. Selling to India equals more money, more stability. U.S. companies often imposed strict quality standards without offering training. India did the opposite. Indian experts traveled to African farms and helped farmers meet those standards. This built trust and loyalty. Indian processing companies hired thousands of African workers. This shifted the perception. India wasn't here to take raw materials. India was here to build an industry. India is geographically closer to Africa. Shipping is cheaper. Processing is faster. Return on investment is stronger. And Indian companies, especially in Kerala, Goa, Karnataka, and Maharashtra, are already global specialists in cashew kernel production. The US simply couldn't compete. For many years, the USA believed it was untouchable in global food markets. But while it was busy focusing on geopolitical battles, Africa and India were redesigning the agri-food landscape. Here's what went wrong for the US. Western buyers assumed Africa would continue exporting raw cashews cheaply forever. India proved otherwise. The US wanted raw materials, not African industrial growth. India supported African industrial growth, and Africans appreciated it. India saw the explosion of demand in the Middle East, Europe, and China. The US did not. Deep historical trade routes, centuries of cultural exchange, similar agricultural systems, a South-South development perspective, diaspora connections. The US simply doesn't have this advantage. India treated Africa as a partner. The difference is everything. Let us break down how individual nations are gaining from India's rise in the cashew market. World's largest producer. Now home to multiple Indian processing factories. Value addition growing rapidly. Farmers' incomes increasing. India buys more Ivorian cashews than anyone else. Nigeria is rapidly expanding cashew farming in Kogi State, Kwara State, Oyo State, Kaduna, Benue. India is helping Nigeria build new processing plants, farmer support centers, direct export channels. Nigeria is set to become one of the most profitable cashew hubs in Africa. These countries rely heavily on cashews for rural employment. India's involvement has increased prices, improved quality, strengthened export volumes, stabilized the market. Ghana's cashew industry is booming. India is a key buyer and strategic partner, particularly in processing and packaging. India's takeover has caused significant global effects. American importers now struggle to secure quality African cashews at the low prices they were used to. India buys earlier, pays better, builds stronger relationships. This gives India even more global influence. China prefers India-processed kernels because Indian factories maintain extremely high standards. India's involvement is pushing Africa toward industrialization, job creation, value addition, economic independence. Washington can no longer assume dominance in African agricultural markets. A new era is here. This isn't just about cashews. This is about power. The U.S. has traditionally tried to maintain influence in Africa through aid, military cooperation, trade preferences, political alliances. But India is using a completely different playbook. Economic partnership plus industrial development plus shared growth. This approach is reshaping Africa's alliances. Many African leaders see India as less controlling, less politically intrusive, more cooperative, more respectful, more committed to technology transfer. This terrifies Washington, because if Africa begins turning toward India and China for its economic partnerships, the U.S. will lose strategic influence, market power, trade leverage, agricultural dominance. The cashew market is only the beginning. Across rural Africa, farmers now say, India pays better. India treats us like partners. India invests in our communities. India helps us improve our crop quality. These voices are shaping Africa's economic future. This matters because farmers are the backbone of African society, and they now prefer India. India isn't stopping with cashews. India has already begun expanding into cocoa, shea butter, cotton, rice milling, sesame, palm kernel, groundnuts, coffee, and tea processing. India aims to become Africa's top agricultural processing partner. This will completely reshape African trade routes, agro-industrial development, rural incomes, export competitiveness. Africa doesn't want to remain a raw materials supplier forever. Africa wants manufacturing, food processing, technology, jobs, higher export revenue, modern agriculture, economic independence. India is helping Africa move in that direction. The US didn't. That is the difference. The rise of India in Africa's cashew market isn't just a trade story. It is a symbol of a new global order. An order where Africa chooses partnerships that respect its people. India becomes a major agro-industrial force. The US can no longer assume automatic dominance. South-South cooperation becomes the new global engine. Farmers earn more. Countries industrialize faster. Local processing replaces foreign exploitation. Africa is changing. India is rising. And the world is reacting. The cashew revolution is underway, and Africa is finally benefiting. This is Iazicho Africa, bringing you the stories shaping the future of our continent. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, because Africa's voice must be heard.